HNB Conversations. Right?
Yeah.
What'd I do wrong?
Well, we open with the word welcome.
Oh.
Or hello.
No. See, I always get it wrong. I practiced before and everything.
Okay, let's do it. Welcome.
Welcome.
It's like someone coming into your congregation being like, House of New Beginnings.
No.
Like, welcome to House of New Beginnings.
Okay. I give up. You're going to do it from now on.
No, that's fun. Go.
No.
Practice
Okay.
makes better.
Practice makes better. Okay. Hello and welcome to HNB Conversations with Rivka and Cosmo.
With Cosmo and Rivka. But I get it. That's fine. You want to go out of alphabetical order? That's fine.
Oh, is that it's supposed to be in
It's
alphabetical,
alphabetical order. That's all. But it's fine. Cosmo and Rivka, Rivka and Cosmo. It's fine.
Sure, that's why you keep talking about it. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine, right? It's fine. We can do it your way.
If you take the first, it's interesting. If you take the first three letters of your name and the first three letters of my name, and you put yours first, it's Rivka's. Right?
Yes.
Rivka's.
Everything's Rivka's.
Yeah, if you do mine first, it's Kosriv,
Yeah,
which doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, that's not impressive.
All right. So, hey, welcome everybody, and we've got a ahoy, everybody, but we've got a new hello.
That's what I should have done. I should have been like, ahoy.
You should have, but you just went HNB Conversations.
Okay, stop it. Okay, so the word I have today that I have found, it is spoken in, I'm assuming, yes, it is spoken in Romania, so it's the Romanian way to say hello. Now, the word is salut. I'm saying salut, but it's spelled S-A-L-U-T. So if I'm going to say it the way it's spelled, to me it sounds like I'm saying sal, and
Well,
if
in
people
other
greet each other,
languages,
I think, imagine
the
how that would
U-
come off.
The U is often an ooh sound.
Right, because the way though it looks like it's spelled in English, that's like, imagine walking around
Yeah, don't
Romania,
do-
just
yeah.
I'm not gonna say it, but like just everybody you walk up to, you're like, hey, and you just
Yeah. No.
But that's what it says. So if you speak Romanian and you know a better way, just let us know, because
I think Romanian we could have
you can look it up.
checked.
Yeah, you can
Right?
check.
We can hear the sound. Some of these languages you can't.
But salute, isn't that in Italian?
Like in Italian, salut. But that's like cheers. That's like saying cheers, like when you raise a glass.
Maybe in Romania they're really happy to see each other every time.
Yeah, salut.
Salute.
Let's see here. Romanian.
Okay.
All right. Now here it tells me that it's bună ziua.
Bună ziua?
Yeah, something like
Bună ziua.
Bună ziua.
Look, right here.
What's
It
that?
says right there, that says Romanian, and that's the word.
That's far in your phone.
Is that too far for your old eyes?
Salut.
Yeah, right? That's what it says.
Yeah, salut. Interesting. Well, Google doesn't say that.
Well,
But that's okay.
Google wins. Just ask Giovanni. Okay.
All right. So, we've got, welcome everybody, and salute. And
Yep.
we're going to start with some Antonio
Do we
spin
have
the wheel.
do we have a soft question and a hard question today, or do we just have a hard question?
I think we don't know. He's going to spin the wheel first.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, my bad.
Okay. We got a few options here from this person. We'll just do this one. I feel like this is a fun, soft one. What were you like as a child?
Well, that just depends on who you talk to.
What do you think you were
What do
like
you
as a
think you were
child?
like?
What do I think I
And
was
then
like?
should
Oh,
we call your mom?
No.
Can't
Too
call
much.
mine.
Can't,
That's not what I was saying. I was talking.
Let's.
You're the worst.
Tonio Panzetta.
That's not what I.
Good grief.
That was Dad.
Don't worry. Anybody that knew my mom, she already told enough about what I was like as a child.
Yeah.
And I think she was right.
You think she was
What she
right?
told you was
She-
correct.
Well, we should ask your sister. I don't think your
I
sister
love my
would
smart,
agree.
Smart.
What was I like as a child? Well, I mean, there's just so much to unpack there.
So here's a story.
Wait,
Why don't
my
you-
story or
yeah,
your story?
Why don't you Yeah. So why don't you tell the story?
Okay, wait, no. What?
No. I'm going to tell you what story to
No.
tell.
Oh man.
So
Okay, but we gotta
Fine.
say both ways.
you want to have
I
me
asked
tell a
you-
story?
Right. I think
Okay,
of a
so,
story,
fine.
and you have to tell
So
a story.
why don't you?
Okay.
Actually, two stories.
Okay. Well, one at a time.
Okay,
You ask me. I
first-
ask you. We can go back and
First,
forth.
tell the story of
No, just ask me one story the first time.
you lived in Springfield.
Yes.
You had a babysitter from
No.
CDC that you didn't like.
No.
Go ahead, tell this
Okay.
story.
Okay.
Because this to me tells me something
About who I am?
who you are, who you were as a child. I find this story to be remarkable.
Well, how? I mean, come on. How old was I? Let's see.
Let's say 82, 1982. So
No,
you're
I
about
think
8
it was,
years old.
I think
It's
it was
going to be
81.
It's going to be 81, 82, 83, somewhere in there. So you're between
Yeah.
you're between 7 and 9, somewhere in there. My guess is based on when
I think
you're
I'm 8, which is between
82,
7 and 9.
1982.
Yeah.
So that's right there. So yes, that's correct.
Okay.
On
Okay.
on a number line, you would have nailed it.
I told you, I am not.
I'm thinking of a number between 7 and 9.
Oh my gosh, you just keep making me laugh. You have to
Okay.
stop.
All right. So,
Okay.
1982, Springfield, Missouri. Mm-hmm. You're being babysat, and go.
Okay. So I'm between the ages of 7 and 9.
8.
And 7 and 9.
8.
Okay. So I'm 8 years. Okay. So I'm 8 years old, and we are taking a year in Springfield. My parents were taking, like how you can like take a sabbatical.
And your dad was doing another degree.
And my dad was
One of
doing
his
one of his many
18.
degrees. And so we had moved to Springfield, and, it was the 80s, the early 80s. And so not that far out of the 70s. Anyway, so everybody played outside. So the whole neighborhood knew each other. And the whole neighborhood knew each other. So I knew all the kids down the block. We all played together. And And so there was a girl down the road that my mom, she was an older teenager, and she wanted to, I think this is how the story goes. My mom had the neighborhood girl babysit me and my little brothers. So if I was 8, Jonathan was like 6
7.
or 7,
And
Dan, because we were born 3 and
3.
3.
5. So
Yeah.
you're somewhere between.
Okay. So she's babysitting us. And my mom, we had a dog, and my mom said to me that that we could take the dog out for a walk. And so tell me if I'm not remembering this correctly. My mind is so vague.
I believe that you wanted to watch something on television.
That's right. My mom had told me we could watch something on television, so I wanted to watch something on television. She wanted to take her dog for a walk, and I was angry.
Your babysitter did.
My babysitter said, we're going to go take my dog for a walk. And I was like, no, my mom said we could watch this. And she's like, too bad, I'm babysitting, we're going for a walk. So my brothers and I we're walking around the block, and we go all the way around, and we come around, and I'm just really, really irritated with her because she wronged us.
She didn't give you your way.
She wronged us because my mother, who's paying her to babysit us, said that we could watch this show. And who knows what it was?
You have to remember, if it's 1982, that if you can watch a particular show, you can't pause it.
Right.
Right? Cause in my mind, I'm like, well, why didn't you just watch it when
later.
you got back to the house?
Oh, who's the genius now?
But you can't, right?
Uh-huh.
So.
Okay, so we had to turn it off, and we had to go out to walk her stupid little dog. So anyway, we're walking around the block, and she's walking with her friend and the dog behind us. And we come around, and we're about to turn the corner where our house is on now this road. So we've gone all the way around the other block.
Now you can see your home.
Now we can see our house.
But
so
she can't
we're about
because you
to
turn the corner and
no,
she's behind
we're
you.
about to turn the corner.
Okay.
So I walk up to my brothers who are walking in front of me. I walk up to them and I say, when I tell you to run, and run inside the house. And I don't remember them questioning me or anything. If anybody would have questioned me, it would have been Jonathan. Daniel would have just been like, all right, because he's like, I'm up for anything.
I don't know if we should do that, guys.
Jonathan's really, really cautious.
That feels like against the rules.
Exactly. So anyway.
Which would have been a little more
we turn the corner. Yeah. We turn the corner and I go, now! And we just book it. And the babysitter doesn't have anything to think other than, oh, look at the little kids. They see their house. They're running home. We get all the way home. And remember, it's the early 80s. Nobody locks their door. So our house was unlocked. So we run inside. I slam the door. I lock the door. I lock the back door. I lock all the windows. And she gets up to the house and she's like, let me in. And I stood at the window and I'm like, no. And she's like, you let me in right now. And I'm like, no. She went and got her mom. Her mom comes to the house and she's like, let us in. And I'm like, no. And I remember just being like, yeah, I'm not doing it. No way.
So what, how would you, so yeah, so that's.
Yeah.
Wait.
That is a strong, young
then
woman.
How long was it, do you think, between that time and the time your parents got home? How long?
It wasn't that long. I just remember opening the door and my mom was there and she was really confused. I was, but I don't even remember.
You did not
cave. I do not remember even getting in trouble for that. I might have blocked it out because it might have really embarrassed my mom. But I don't remember. I just remember being like, you said we could watch the show. She told us we had to go. Mm-hmm. I don't remember that girl ever babysitting again. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I don't think it's because she was uninvited. I think you're disinvited from babysitting my angelic children again.
Yeah.
I think she was like,
yeah,
no.
There were a lot of people who watched me when I was younger. I think would tell you I was really probably not pleasant. I wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, that story sounds like you were headstrong.
I was.
Which you grew out of.
Oh, yeah. But okay, so now you have to tell the paddle story.
Which one?
Okay, you're right. That's paddles don't fly. Right.
All right. No, I know my mother's told this story so many times that anybody that knows this has heard it. Knew her has heard it. But we were living in Connecticut and I was probably 3 years old. And we lived in a condo complex shaped like a U, and it was on a hill. So our condo was on the top of the hill, and then in the in-between area, there's this whole long hill we would be out playing on. Not that any of this matters. But we'd be out playing. We had big rocks we would hide behind, and so I'm out there with all the neighborhood kids. And apparently, I felt inconvenienced about having to go inside to use the restroom.
It's inconvenient for all of us.
So, I apparently did a number 2 in my 3-year-old pants. Couldn't make it to the house.
Shame.
I got in the house and my mother's upset.
This is the time before pull-ups.
There are no
you're
pull-ups.
Either potty trained or you're like in full diapers.
Kid, look what I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I went in the house and I had made a mess. So my mom was My mom was upset with me and she said she was upset. So she says something like this. Well, she says this. She goes, you see that paddle on the wall? We had a paddle on the wall.
That's what they used. That's what they had to use to discipline you because there was just no getting through. So there's like a paddle on the wall.
Right. And actually, it's funny. I never knew what it meant. But anytime people would come to our house, my parents would show this paddle, and everyone would laugh about it. Because it said "to heck with psychology" on it. It was printed on it. To heck with psychology.
That sounds like all our parents right there.
Except it's interesting as I think about that aloud. Right now, I'm gonna veer off and come back.
Are we tangenting?
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 I don't know how you would say it,
I
but
don't know.
But that's what we're doing.
Okay.
So but it's interesting to me that I was not allowed to say heck. I got in big trouble for saying heck as a kid.
As you should still to this day.
So, but we had a paddle displayed on our wall that said "to heck." Anyway, they would say it said "to heck with psychology." Everybody laugh about it.
So right now, I just want you to understand the entitlement where you think that as a child not being allowed to use the word heck, adults, on the other hand, are like they should not be allowed either.
I'm saying it's a mixed message to have it displayed on the...
Could you read at the age of 3?
I could read later, and that was still... I was still in our... So I think I learned it by watching you, okay, by them. You know, they taught me the word that I got in trouble for. So anyway, so she points at the paddle's on the wall, and she says to me, and I do remember this. I have memories that go back to when I'm 2 and 3 years old, and I remember this vividly because what she said was so absurd in my mind that I felt like I had to respond. So she said... And my mom called me Johnny. I was Johnny. She goes, "Johnny, do you see that paddle? You see that paddle on that wall?" And I looked at it, and she said, I said, "Yes." And she said, "The next time that you go to the bathroom in your pants, you see that paddle? That paddle's going to fly." And I thought, that's the dumbest thing I've ever...
No, you ran up the
Well,
stairs.
I know. I'm telling you what I thought.
I know. You ran up
hold on.
this... Okay.
I'm telling...
I have heard the story. I am a credible source
So
at this
I
point.
thought she said this ridiculous thing, and so I wasn't going to confront her at the bottom of the stairs because then I'm within reach of that paddle. And so my mom wasn't super fast, and so I shoot up the stairs, and I turn around, and I put my hands on my hips, apparently.
Yes.
And I said, "Mommy," and she went, "What?" I went, "Ha, paddles don't fly." And she goes...
You took off.
And she goes, "Well, this one's going to." And then she laughed to herself.
Right, because she thought you were so cute and you were so funny. So
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
I think, though, that says something about you having a smart mouth.
Well, there's no question.
Like, I think lots of people from your young days would be like, he was a, like, how would you just, like, a smart mouth?
Yeah. No, I did have this this thing where I
mean, you had friends whose parents didn't want you to play with their kids anymore because you were they felt you were disrespectful to your mom. I never had that happen to me. I did have parents say they didn't want me hanging out with their kids or coming over anymore because they thought I was lazy. But that's totally different.
So I would say that yes, indeed, I was. Particularly if I was the more comfortable I was with you, I would be a smarter mouth. So I thought that I was clever. I thought that like I would take in what people were saying, and I remember as a little kid, like being really little, and I would say something, and how they would laugh, and people would be so impressed with like the dumbest stuff. I'd be like 4 or 5 years old, and I'd say something, and I thought, and they would be so impressed.
You
with
probably had a lot of attitude
and
when
I was
you
like,
said it.
well, not attitude, but I would. Then
No?
I'd be like, wow, this is easy. Like I remember one time I made a joke. There was an older couple that I was over at their house, and I got to ride on their mower, and they asked me, they're like, "Hey, have you ever been to Italy?" And I had been to Italy when I was 4 years old, but my parents had also gone to Italy when my mom was in 1974 when my mom was pregnant with me. And so I said, "Yeah, I've been to Italy twice, but I've only seen it once." And they were like, "What?" And I went, "Yeah, the first time I went, all I could see was guts because my mom was pregnant with me."
That's a funny thing for a
and
kid
they
to say,
just
though.
roared, and
Because
I
it's
didn't.
super literal.
I didn't think it was.
And you're very literal.
Yeah. So but anyway, like, and then I remember in kindergarten, actually. I still remember this very clearly. So my teacher was Mrs. Valentine, but we had another teacher come in who was actually, her husband was the other chaplain at the prison where my dad was. So I used to go over their house, Mrs. Bright. So she would go and teach in different classes. And so I remember her saying, "Tomorrow I'm coming and we're going to learn mathematics." That was the word. It was this massive word. We're going to learn mathematics.
You find mathematics a massive
When you're
word.
5, you just say, "We're going to learn math." She said, "We're going to learn mathematics."
So anything larger than a 4-letter word.
Spell it.
MATH. That's 4 letters.
Keep going.
Mathematics is longer. I said anything more.
I know, I'm just saying
than
it was
a
impressive
4-letter words.
Don't ask mom to try and spell mathematics.
So anyway, Mrs. Bright comes in and and I know her, right? But she pulls out the board and she's doing math problems. And I look at the board. We're all sitting there in line, and I look at the board and I think, oh, okay, I know what she's doing. And so I was done. So then I was talking. This was the thing. I was a talker. And so
your mouth gets you in trouble.
Always it has. That's the thing that got me in the most trouble. And so I remember she said, so I start talking to my friends, which I'm being a distraction, and I get it all. I'm not 5 anymore, but I'm being a distraction. And she says, Johnny? And I said, yes. And she goes, if you think you know this so well that you can just talk through the lesson, why don't you come up here and do it? And I was like, okay. So I get up, and I still remember the problem was 7 plus 6. And I just walked up to the board, and it was 7 plus 6, and I wrote 13, put the chalk down, and turned around and walked back. And I wasn't being, in my heart, I wasn't being smart in that point. There were plenty of times that I was being a smart mouth, but I wasn't. Then I was just like, oh, okay. And so then she had to talk to my mom. So the thing, my mom, when I started first grade, my mom actually went to Mrs. McLeod early, and she said,
give him lots of work.
If he gets done with his work, just keep giving him work to do, because it's when he gets done that he gets himself in trouble.
That's so funny. We're so different. See, when I was in school, like, you needed more work to do. My teachers were already frustrated, remember, because I wasn't bringing in my homework. Like, I didn't do my work. Yeah. And that's how come I don't know math, kids. Do your homework.
They actually had they had paddling in our school, so you could get paddled. We had moved there from Connecticut, and so I remember, I'll never forget it, when we moved there, I was still 4, and my parents found out that they had corporal punishment in the school, and my mom was like, oh my goodness. My parents were like, that's terrible. And then they said, listen, don't you, if I hear that you get paddled in school, they said to my sister and I, then when you get home, you're going to get it again. So in our kindergarten was in one massive room that had partitions. So you had 4 different partitioned classrooms. It seemed much bigger than it probably was because I was small. And so over the course of kindergarten, I got paddled many times. And what they would do is they would actually take you to the middle. Every classroom could see you. And they would have another teacher there to be a witness. And so there you are. You're getting paddled, not in front of just your own friends.
Okay. I thought for a second you were saying they would go get other students to be there as a witness.
No, but that
would be terrifying, though. I mean, talk about a punishment.
Every student could see you. Really? You're in the middle of this partitioned area, and I could see into the class.
Oh, wow, that's really humiliating.
So you would get paddled not just in front of your class, but in front of 4 classes, and then but they would have another teacher standing there.
Oh, wait, you were at Christian school?
No. Public school.
And you had partitioned walls?
It was one massive, like,
because
almost like
Bushnell was probably so small.
Yeah, it was one the kindergarten.
You went to school during a time where it was a 1-room classroom.
Well, but they broke it this one into 4. That was just for kindergarten. And then, so they would say to you, they would say, are you going to tell your parents when you get home that you got spanked? Well, my parents already told me that if I tell them I'm going to get spanked, that if I get spanked at school, then I'm going to get spanked at home. So
maybe their generation would have gone home because maybe they did. Maybe they went home and
Antonio
they were honest with their parents.
All the time.
Yeah, Antonio was the worst about. We're like,
I believe everything.
No, I was actually beginning to worry about his level of intelligence because he kept being so honest. Which
anyway, so I
just appreciate your Christ-likeness.
So I would lie. Antonio. I mean, they were like, "Are you going to tell your parents when you get home?" And I was like, I'm not going to tell you this, but no way am I telling my parents when I get home. But I was like, yes. Mm-hmm. And so I would get spanked. And so it was later in the year. My mom was a classroom mother. So she would, anytime we had any kind of party or whatever, she would bring cakes and cupcakes and yada, yada, yada to any of them. So she was one of the class moms. And so it was later in the year. And Mrs. Valentine is talking to my mom at one of the parties or whatever. And she said, well, Johnny's doing so much better. And she's like, oh? And she's like, yeah, we haven't had to spank him in quite a while. And my mom was like, oh, tell me more. and so, but I had actually, I escaped statutes of limitations, baby. I didn't get in any trouble.
That's not surprising. Okay.
I didn't get in any trouble for it when I got home. And so I got spanked probably in kindergarten. Didn't get spanked in first grade because Mrs. McLeod was my teacher, and she was beautiful, and I was on my best behavior for her. And then it's true. I actually told my mom, I was like, hey, I've heard Mrs. McLeod is a great teacher.
So what does that say for the other teachers? What do you say?
They weren't as pretty as Mrs. McLeod. I think she probably was only 22 or 23 at the time, but I didn't know because they all looked older. And I was like, Mom, I've heard Mrs. McLeod's a really good teacher. Can you request for her to be my first grade teacher? And she did. And so that's how Miss McLeod was my teacher. Then I had Mrs. Johnson in second grade, and I got spanked a lot in Mrs. Johnson's class. And
So Mrs. Johnson was clearly not an attractive woman.
Yes. Have you seen Jimmy Neutron's teacher? I mean, that's true. That's the picture in my mind. I always think of Mrs. Johnson.
What's her name?
Mrs. Fowl.
Yeah.
Mrs. Fowl.
Anyway, and then my third grade teacher, Mrs. Gideons, actually she was pretty, but I got spanked in that class. And then fourth grade, I got spanked by two different teachers. Because now I had
So in a
multiple
world
teachers.
where there
and
is
one of those was my
public
favorite all
shaming
time.
in that way, you continued to need public shaming?
When did the spanking stop?
I think fourth grade
High
was
school?
no.
No, actually, I went to a Christian school. You could get paddled even in high school.
There were in junior high, people still got paddled. I never did. I got threatened with it. I did get paddled by one teacher in the fifth grade because I had 5 teachers in fifth grade then because you're changing class. I think I got paddled by one teacher in the fifth grade. But the last one I remember was in the fourth grade that Richard Gregory and I were in fourth grade. We were in Mrs. Catlett's class. She was my favorite. I loved Mrs. Catlett. She would throw erasers at me for talking during class, and I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, today that's called abuse.
But she was fun. It was fun. We all laughed at it.
Yeah.
So
Remember when abuse was funny, guys?
it wasn't fun. Getting hit with an eraser. It was
No,
an
I'm
eraser.
kidding.
It's like
I'm kidding. We should try it.
so anyway. So I'm sitting at Richard Gregory and we're doing. We're talking, and she tells us suddenly. Mrs. Catlett says, "Hey boys, go write your names on the board. Like we were supposed to write our names like we got in trouble or whatever. Go write your names on the board." And so we both go up, and I don't know why we did this. We didn't talk about it. But we both go up and we write really tiny. I start writing Johnny really small with the chalk, and he's doing the same thing. And then she looks at us and she goes, "Boys, write it bigger." And we erased it.
Okay.
And all we
hold on.
did.
Stop. Antonio, you do not ever get to say you're like me again. This is all you and all your dad. I'm just saying.
So Richard and I just looked at each other, not a word. We just looked at each other, and then as I reached up as far as I could reach,
So like 2'5".
something like that, but with my arm fully extended up, wrote the top of a J and brought it all the way down, wrote the biggest J I could possibly, and that was the last letter I wrote. And as he wrote his massive R, we were immediately sent outside.
Removed.
And we got paddled in that
See,
class.
I don't think our
Yeah.
parents' generation appreciated funny kids, but today I think our generation, we appreciate funny kids.
I think so.
And I think that's why our parents that's why before we'll see my parents are like, okay, Antonio, don't try to be funny. You understand? Do not try to be funny.
But and again, I think with most kids, that was when I became like comfortable. The more I became comfortable in class, then my real personality could show up. But I was very, very reserved and quiet.
You're such the introvert.
No, I was very reserved and quiet with new people. I was very,
I have known you for 25 years at least.
26.
26 years. I have never met a person who thought you were reserved in any manner.
That's not true. It's not true. Yeah. When we went in 2008, you and I went to Tennessee, and we went.
2008, honey.
Like you're logging.
Listen,
like,
back up.
In the year of
Back up.
2008, you met one individual.
If I may.
A quiet, timid individual.
So we went and we preached at Pastor Enfinger's church, and he had been my pastor from the time I was 6 till I was 11, and his son was my best friend. I used to go over their house all the time. So we're having dinner with Pastor and Sister Enfinger, and they were surprised by me as an adult, by how outspoken I was, by how animated I was, because I'd been over their house all the time, but I was always very quiet around them. And so they were like, boy, we didn't see this like this side of you at all. Now that side was there. I just
No, I think it's a great story. And it's not that I don't believe you. However, in the time that I've known you, I've met so many people who've known you, and that's just one story that you remember so well from 2008, which leads me to believe that it's not a common thing.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt for a moment?
Sure.
There was a second story that Dad wanted Mom to tell.
Oh yeah. Well, this is.
What is with this kid? Like, Antonio.
What? Dad's been talking for like 20 minutes.
I know, but I thought maybe I'd get out of it.
No.
Well, I wanted to hear the stapler story.
Yeah, I knew that's what it was. I knew it was the stapler story.
The stapler story. I should have never opened up to any of you people. Just kept my cards close to my chest.
All right, go ahead. Tell the story.
Only vulnerable with your husband or children.
Go ahead.
Look what it's got me. Look what it's got me. Okay, the stapler story. So, the year was whatever it was when I was in the 3rd grade.
Still, same year, 82. This is a banner year.
No, wait a minute. Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, it is. It's the same year. Okay, so, back in those days, like you could make, we would make storybooks. Another story came to mind. I am not going to do that story. Okay, but we would make these storybooks, and so they'd bring in like wallpaper books and all kinds of stuff that had all different wallpapers, and you would like cut. They used to do this for us in like Sunday school too, or for you Sunday school, where you would like cut out and make outfits, and then you have like the cover for your book.
Oh sure.
You can write. So you like write your own story, and then you make your own book, and you have that. I still have mine.
Mm-hmm.
My mom saved it. So anyways, in doing all of this, there's a lot of stuff that I think we were stapling. So the stapler's out. And I think at the time, the stapler was not something we were allowed to use. Probably because it was her stapler and she didn't want us goofing around with it.
I wonder why.
So weird.
Let's see if we can validate that decision by the teacher with the rest of this story.
I'm sure I'm not the only kid, okay? So anyways, I'm looking at the stapler, and I just have the thought, So I'm looking at this stapler, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder what would happen if I put my finger in there. Like, it just did not cross my mind. So I went over to the stapler. I stuck my finger in the stapler, and with all my body weight, like I'm trying to staple through a book, with all my body weight, I stapled my finger. And I'll never forget the shock from the amount of pain, and then immediately thinking, that's the dumbest thing I could have done. And I had to pull the staple like out of my finger, and I kept that. I shoved my hand in my pocket. I could have bled out, not through my finger, but like had I been bleeding out from something so stupid as that, I would have just let myself die.
Right.
Like I was smart enough to know that was really dumb, but like not smart enough to stop myself from that impulse of doing it.
Yeah. So there are times where our kids will do something really dumb, and she'll be like, "What are you thinking?" And all I can think of is that story. Like, okay, I know, like, when they're smart mouths, they get that from me. But when they do something that mindless, I did not.
But I grew
I matured. I have learned so much over the years. So now, as an adult, I don't do that
It's
kind of
amazing.
stuff. I don't do that kind of stuff.
She's not stapling her finger anymore. Can we get a round of applause? A standing ovation. Yeah, that's a testimony. That's her baptism testimony. You know, when I was young, I stapled my finger on purpose.
And I knew it was dumb.
But not anymore. I'm a new person. Okay.
Okay.
So,
oh my gosh. Okay. So there, I told that second story, and what can I say? You have to experience adversity.
But here's
to grow.
another thing that I would. She also though was this person that always would find injured animals.
I was
birds.
always coming home with
she would come
stray
home with-
animals.
Yeah,
and
that was sort of her
I raised
thing.
a baby bird that I found that fell out of a tree.
Right. She was sort of the one who looked out for the underdog.
I took care of my little brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a bratty little brother.
Well, I think every little brother can be a bratty little
Yeah.
brother.
I think I learned early on that there was a light shining on me in my home in like a golden hue.
I think sometimes you still like to pretend
That
that
allowed
there's a
me-
light shining
that
down
allowed
on
me
you.
to be like, oh, like
I think your mom did hear singing angels when you would come into her presence.
right. Yeah. Well,
Whether or not it was real,
Yeah.
like that's another thing.
yeah. So that was, I'm sure I don't know why I feel like I've told this story. Have I told the story about?
I just don't know. There are so many stories I feel like you've told so many times, so you'd have to remind me.
Well, there was one time that we're sitting at the table we're sitting at the kitchen table, and I was a smart mouth, and I said something, and
This is like
it's
the
like a
beginning of
repeat.
every dinner.
Yeah. I said something, and my dad looked at me, and apparently he had hit his limit with me. And so he starts to undo his belt to scare me, like he's going to spank me with the belt.
They must have threatened you quite a few times
did.
for that to have to happen.
Yeah. So I got up. Yeah, I've told this story, I think. I got up and I ran into my room, locked the door, climbed out the window.
You haven't told this story though to anyone on the podcast.
So
I don't think.
so we lived by the prison. Our house was in a block of houses, a 1 mile block that you could see the prison from our house. Because my dad was a prison chaplain. So anyway, I climbed out my window. I locked my door, climbed out my window, and I ran around to the backyard, and I hid behind this bush. Well, my parents, by the time they got into my room, I was gone out the window. So then they drove around the block for a long time.
trying to find
me, calling. My mom's a
And you were
wreck.
how old?
8.
8. 8.
And so, and my mom, she's a wreck. She's crying, and
Yeah,
and again, we're right.
She thinks in the middle of nowhere because no prisoners are getting.
no prisoners there, but
dangerous.
there are snakes and there are gators. There are things around there, and we had the woods that you could go into. So they're driving around looking, and I'm just behind this big bush, and so finally they come back home and they go to walk to the backyard toward the woods. And as I see them, I see my dad coming toward the bush. So I think to myself, okay, so as he comes to the back of the bush, I'm going to go around. And when he walks around it, he'll never see me. And what
like in the
did,
cartoons.
right. What I didn't calculate was the fact that my mom wasn't walking with him. So she's standing over by the house. And as I kind of
Far away.
yeah, as far away as I begin to kind of Scooby-Doo tiptoe, around the bush.
That was good.
My mom sees me and she's in tears and she goes, Johnny, and my dad goes, Johnny, and I go, Mommy, and I ran to my mom and I jumped up and she held me, and
you didn't get in
they were
trouble for that
so
one.
relieved
Yeah.
that I was found. That I did not.
Yeah.
I did not
I
get
think
spanked
so.
for that.
I just want you to know that for all the spankings that you got, like you didn't get, you probably, for all the spankings you did get, you probably needed so many more. Like, I think, because there's all these stories about like the times you were gonna get spanked and you didn't get spanked. For me, being the oldest daughter of a very traditional family, and being the oldest, they were not pulling any punches.
Yeah.
Like, I got disciplined and it was held to. Sometimes my dad would be like nice about things, but for the most part, like, I was in trouble. I'm not saying I didn't deserve it. I'm just saying very rarely was it like, okay, you cannot be punished anymore. And I remember being punished from a very early age.
Yeah, so I eventually got better. But yeah, I was usually trying to be funny. I had to have the last word in all the time.
That's always so funny.
Finally grew out of it.
Who told you that that was funny?
Other kids that would laugh. See,
And
if I
having
got
the last
attention-
word with an adult?
If I said something that in an 8-year-old's mind is funny, that as an adult when some 8-year-old says his funny thing, it's not funny. You're never like, wow, that's hilarious.
Right.
But when you're 8 and your 8-year-old peers all think that your bravery for saying this really quote unquote witty thing, and it's not witty at all, and they roar in laughter, that kind of attention.
Yeah. So you were like the class clown?
Yes.
Yeah, see, when I was a kid, nobody ever liked me. They did not like me because I don't know, like, I could see right through kids, and I thought they were dumb. Like, you know, like how girls can be really dramatic and all that kind of stuff. So they just a lot of the times didn't like me. Or I would come into school, hadn't even met anybody, but they just decided they didn't like me because I was in a different school every year practically.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of kids. You were in the same school system from
all the way through.
All the way through.
So,
And I
mean, I went to kindergarten with kids I grew up.
Right.
I graduated with kids that I went to kindergarten.
Right. And my longest time in school was when I was in high school in Israel.
Right.
And so sometimes, just nobody liked me. But I was really, what would you describe this as? I don't know how I would describe this. This is probably why I didn't have too many friends that were girls. I did think they were a bit ridiculous and dramatic and seriously high maintenance. And so most of my friends were always boys, but I had 2 younger brothers and and they were also my friends. But so like I think I was in the 3rd grade, not 2nd grade, 3rd grade. And we were in art class. And so all the kids are in there and we're all painting our pictures, and this one girl, she's going to every girl and she's going, "My picture's so ugly. Don't you think my picture's ugly?" And the other girl would go, "No, it's not ugly. It's so nice." And then she'd go to the next girl, "My picture's ugly. Don't you think my picture's so ugly?" And I saw this happening over and over again. She's going around the room. And she's coming my way, and I think she's ridiculous. Like, she's doing this for attention. She's just looking for compliments. So she gets to me, and she goes, "My picture's ugly. Don't you think my picture's ugly?" And I just looked at her and I went, "Yeah, it's ugly." And everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that." And I remember, I'm 3rd grade. I turn around and I go, "Oh, come on. You know she's only wanting everyone to say it's nice. It's fine." And I walked away.
Right.
But I was just like, I don't know what that is in a person. But I was just like, maybe that's why I have such a hard time ever faking anything. Because even then I was like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's hard to what were we like as children. It's a big picture. I mean, I was a fighter. I was loud. Because I was small, I learned to not I've gotten a lot of fights because
You're a big fighter.
Yeah, because if someone tried to bully me,
or if someone said something about your sister or your
my
mom.
Yeah, then so I fought a lot as well. But I learned that I didn't have fights with 2 people. Typically,
kids usually, they learn,
alone.
Don't mess with that little guy over there.
So if you bark loud, rah, 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 like a chihuahua.
Yeah, you're like, that's what I always say. I'm like, he's got that chihuahua syndrome.
You just got to snap at him a little bit. Anyway, so that was what life taught me as a child. And then, you grow. You grow and I think the last fight I got in when I was 15, though. That was it.
You were 15?
I was 15. And I was really trying to walk with the Lord. And then...
Well, good for you.
And then I had this fight in front of and I had to apologize to all these people the next day because I felt like I'd blown my witness.
Oh, I remember,
yeah.
That's a terrible story.
And the guy that I ended up getting a fight with ended up being a pastor as well years later.
Well, so it's nice to know that your terrible witness didn't impact his soul.
Yeah, Richie made it. It's just everybody else that was watching. You know? All right.
Okay.
Well, there's
so-
lots of those stories. I mean, we could go on and on about when we were like kids. That was a significant portion of our life. But is there,
So,
You want another
Well,
question?
how long
We're
was that?
45 minutes.
we're 35 minutes.
I think
45.
35 is good.
45?
45 minutes.
Whoa.
Okay. Yeah.
I think we're good.
We're good. This is what we can talk. It's clearly not.
So we've said nothing of significance today.
Yeah, but I think people know us a little better.
Well, yeah, at least what we were like.
Yeah.
But we're not.
But again, that's coming from us. I think if you were to ask my brothers, they would give you like the worst stories. If you were to talk to my parents,
But we didn't go for the best stories, right? We didn't go for you locked your babysitter out.
yeah, but you're the one that told me to tell that story about me. I didn't just go, you know what? Here's a story.
But you told me that story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're my husband.
Okay. Oh, so we haven't said. So sorry if we haven't said anything that enlightened anyone today, but
It is what it is, folks.
I think it's been
Blame
long
the
enough.
big computer in the sky.
What were we like as kids? I'm not who I was. I'm not who I'll be. I'm in process.
Amen.
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 I wish I was, but sometimes I'm still like that little kid. Always got to have the last word in. Ta-da.
Okay, well, then I'll let you have the last word.
All right. Well, okay, everybody. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, shalom. Have a beautiful day.
Bye-bye.